So this is going to be a bit of a philosophical discourse about losing rating points and what to do about it. What is your dream state, as I call it? The dream state of being able to get into a chess trance. It's the state of concentration where you are speaking another mental language practically. It takes over and time in the mind is operating. In other words, your concentration is pure and as accurate as it can be at chess. And the first way that you can lose a lot of rating points, and the way that I perfected, was to annoy the wrong tournament director. Turns out that tournament directors have authority to do whatever they want, including adjudicating your games, forfeiting them, etc. And of course making all kinds of excuses about why they did it. But in the old days, when I played tournament chess, and why I quit tournament chess, people say, well, why did you quit tournament chess? And the answer is real simple. In the old days, it took months to learn what your rating change was. There wasn't the internet, and there wasn't a computer program driving everything. It was, you didn't even know your own results, especially if you drove to another town. You waited for a magazine to come in the mail. And when the magazine came, it reflected your new amazing rating. And my new amazing rating took a huge dive the last time I played. And the reason it took a huge dive is that I had a medical emergency going on in my family, and it was screwing up what I call my dream state. And I had to leave the tournament. And I left it early, and it annoyed the tournament director, who gave me permission and said there'd be no problem, because what he found out was, as he claimed, he couldn't certify the tournament because there would be too few players. There was some excuse along those lines, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was pretty lame and horrible, and I tried to take it up with the governing body, and they backed it. Basically said, well, the director gets to do whatever he wants, and including adjudicating games and forfeiting me and various things that affected my rating drastically. I thought, well, it's very, very hard to get rating points, and just to have somebody arbitrarily take them away who's like rated in the $1,300 to $1,500 point range, is like, and who has power and who is going to be backed by the governing body. I can pretty much have fun with chess without dealing with that sort of garbage. And so the first way that I suggest is, if you really want to lose points, annoy the tournament director, especially the wrong one. The next way is to see the wrong dentist. Now, I have a little story to tell about dentists, and if you'll indulge me for a second, I had a spouse who had an employee, and the employee's husband, who was in his 40s, went to the dentist. Dentist took routine x-rays, and the x-rays turned up something unusual, some sort of like mouth tumor thing, and within weeks her husband was dead after just seeing the dentist. They identified something and he died, and that affected a lot of people that I knew. At any rate, I saw a dentist who recommended that I have my wisdom teeth taken out, all four, and this would have been when I was about, I'd say, 20, 22 years old. At any rate, I might as well tell you now, that was over 40 years ago. I saw this surgeon, which was in a giant building in a major metropolis in America, full of dentists and surgeons. And I remember getting gas and them removing my four wisdom teeth, two of which hadn't emerged yet, cutting my gums open and being left with all kinds of stitches and swelling, and this happened for hours. It seemingly, I was out, but I could hear everything going on. In other words, I had some sort of gas anesthesia, and they were prying and doing all kinds of things to remove bone. And what happened was, when I was done, they basically turned me loose, asked me to pay, and I paid them some cash, wrote them a check, and it was rather difficult to do and rather annoying that they were asking me, based on the state I was in, that I was just like leaving the anesthesia that I'd been under. And I was sent downstairs with some sort of pain medication prescription to the pharmacy on the ground floor, where I wandered around for an hour staring at shelves because I still wasn't quite right. I never did get the prescription filled. Instead, I wandered out into the street and got hit by a cab. And so when that happened, um, fortunately, the cab driver was alarmed and thought he was going to get sued or something, and stuck me in the back of the cab, told me I could go wherever I wanted. And I was, a nice fella in a major metropolitan area wearing a business suit, and I told him to take me to this major corporation where my father worked. And my father's employees found me down in the lobby when the cab driver stopped and took me in. And I was sweating and vomiting, but if you've had oral surgery, vomiting is really a bad deal. And there was these stitches in the back of my mouth, and I was bleeding. And they took me upstairs, and my father was in a meeting, and they took care of me there for a couple hours until I was a little bit better. Unfortunately, I was told that I would be able to do whatever I wanted to do in a day or two. And I had signed up for a tournament with a non-refundable entry fee. And 3 days later, I went into a tournament and had the worst tournament of my life. So disasters can happen, and pain can really preoccupy you. If you're playing in pain, and I've seen this with, in particular, students that I coach who are girls, and there are some that cannot play during certain cycles effectively because they're preoccupied. The pain takes up the buffer space and ruins the time and the mind situation. So it can screw up your life pretty bad and cost you a lot of rating points. So you ought to be cognizant of the fact that your buffer space, as far as your dream state is concerned, needs to be carefully looked after and preserved. And of course, you can see the wrong dentist again. And I have online ratings going on. And just as a follow-up, I've had a dentist that's been taking pictures of the scars in the back of my mouth that were left by the stitches 40 years ago that I described. And the scars have gradually turned white over the years because I'm old. It's just like white scar tissue. And this dentist claimed I had some sort of like slight growth in one of them, and what really needed to happen was I needed to go back. And I started being quoted things like 5-year survival rates, and I needed to see a dental surgeon to rule out the possibility that some horrible cancer, like the person that had the discovery I talked about earlier, and basically try to scare me to death. Go get this cut out and biopsied and one thing and another. There's something that's been in there for 40 years that it just changed color due to whatever. But there's a thing called alveolar ridge keratosis that's completely normal. So I don't know whether these people are just like playing games, or at any rate, it ruins your buffer space. And once again, I all of a sudden the next day or two, start playing in these blitz tournaments that I get into, and I did horribly. And my profiles took a disastrous beating before I got back to normal and got my head straight about it. If you're 10 to 20% preoccupied with some sort of medical issue, you're not going to be able to play good chess. And that's basically the lesson that we learned today.